A former priest convicted of child molestation reveals after he texted a child inappropriately, Archbishop Gregory Aymond let him promise not to do so again. As Gabby Killett reports, the priest's removal came only after he texted the child a second time, went to a psychiatric evaluation, and admitted to sexual abuse.
The Archbishop called me in February of 2020 and asked me if I had done this. Yes, I had. He said, "Do you give me your word you will not do it again?" I said, "Yes, I would." I held to that for a little while, and then I gave in during the pandemic, and I texted this person again.
During his parole hearing, Pat Watney, the pedophile priest convicted of molesting a child in 2023, reveals Archbishop Gregory Aymond asked him to promise not to inappropriately text a minor student in February 2020 when he worked as chaplain at Pope John Paul School in Slidell. Watney says he broke that promise, and it was only after he texted the child a second time that Aymond sent him to be psychologically evaluated. During the evaluation, which included a polygraph test, Watney admitted he had molested a separate child years prior, Tim Geo.
I did confess to having an inappropriate relationship and touching one of my students at that time.
Geo testified at Thursday's hearing.
This trauma isn't behind me. It's still with me. It affects how I parent my kids. It affects my marriage. It affects how safe I feel in the world.
We reached out to Aymond's representatives for an interview, but they declined, saying Watney hardly revealed anything and that Aymond addressed the case shortly after Watney was removed from ministry. They pointed to a YouTube video posted at that time, claiming Watney had been immediately removed. But Watney's removal was only after he texted the child a second time, went to a psychiatric evaluation, and admitted sexual abuse.
In February 2020, we received copies of text messages between Watney and a teenager. Though not sexual in nature, our technology policy forbids this type of communication. This was addressed and the text messages stopped.
The Archdiocese says it was Aymond's actions that prompted Watney's confession, removal, and eventual conviction. Letitia Payton is the Louisiana contact for the Survivors Network of those abused by priests and the executive director of her own clergy sex abuse survivor support organization, Tentmakers. She began working as a survivor's advocate after her son was molested by a priest. She condemns Aymond's response to the messages and says it was wrong to simply ask Watney to promise not to text the child inappropriately again.
You can't give the benefit of the doubt when a child could possibly be harmed for the rest of his entire life. There's no benefit of the doubt, and there's history to prove there should not be the benefit of the doubt.
She also laments that Aymond's alleged actions are modeled by what she calls a lack of transparency in the Catholic Church.
Archbishop Aymond is probably riding those kinds of coattails where we have other bishops who are doing sort of the same thing by not being transparent, not being accountable, and nothing's really happening to them. They're being elevated.
And Payton adds it can often be re-traumatizing for victims to go over the facts of their cases again in hearings, especially when new information may be revealed.